Welcome back to XYZ. My name is Ben, as you know, and we're here to talk about climate change today. So I actually presented this topic, or I wanted to talk about this with my fellow XYZers, because this is obviously kind of close to home, and it's another year of very abnormal weather. So uh, let's talk about lifestyle, and education, maybe a little bit of policy, and of course, always some hope and maybe some doom and gloom in there too. So let's jump
throw
into
some
it.
doom and gloom in there.
That's right. All right, let's jump into it. So let's just kind of start. Let's start at the beginning, right? So when did you? Let's start with Chris. So when did you first become aware of climate change? Even in the general sense, whatever iteration it was.
Yeah. I don't remember anybody using the term climate change until maybe late 80s. But back in the 70s, we were completely bombarded with environmental ads and environment. It was everywhere. I mean, you guys have probably heard, during the 80s, we had the this is your brain on drugs, that kind of whole, the just say no thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the 70s, it was all about environment. There were all these pollution commercials. There was this organization, I don't know, they were nonprofit or what, called Keep America Beautiful. And they just had ads on TV and in papers and stuff all the time.
Really?
Everywhere you looked, there was environmental ads and all that. We were just completely inundated with it.
What do you think that was from? What was doing that?
Well, I feel like the 60s started to bring, with the whole hippie thing and everything, I think they started to bring a lot of awareness about that. And also just the 70s were known as a time where it's just pollution was just affecting everybody. It was just terrible. The bigger cities, there was just this smog. You guys know what it kind of looks like now, when the Canadian wildfires affect us and it kind of looks hazy outside. But it was just modify that, take that times 4. And that's how cities looked all the time, Los Angeles and New York and stuff. They were just like that continually. And also, I just lost my train of thought. In addition to all that, okay, so now where we've got, in Iowa, we have the Iowa refund 5 cents on our cans, right?
Yeah.
Well, back in the 70s, that wasn't a thing. And you would just see trash, especially pop cans and stuff, everywhere. Just they'd just be all along the road, everywhere. It was just, it's hard to believe now.
So interesting. It's so tragic, but that's so interesting too.
Yeah.
Today, even when I was growing up, there wasn't really any of that. I would say there was maybe a little more litter, but it was the 90s, and I feel like people had probably cleaned up. Most of the attitudes had probably shifted by then.
Yeah. And, that was a big thing. I know people try to talk about taking away our pop can redemption thing. But I remember it really made a huge difference. It seems ridiculous now, but it was a different time, and people 5 cents was a big deal, Yeah. And that made a big difference. It's all of a sudden people wanted to collect cans and turn them in for money. And that made a huge difference.
So were you instilled with that too? Or was that, I guess, from your parents or anything too, that sort of protect the environment or anything?
Yeah, my family, and this probably wasn't typical for my area, but my family was really into environment and nature and stuff too.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it would definitely, and I have some relatives that are in Colorado that are totally all about that. And so it was a big deal. Yeah, it was definitely instilled in me. Yes.
So let's jump forward a few decades. Elmeen, what about you? Give me your take here.
Yeah, one thing I want to add before I forget, for Chris's stuff, was that all that pollution that's coming from American manufacturing reaching its peak, right before we offshored everything.
A lot of that, yep. Too, and also cars. There was no
good call out.
Yeah, definitely. There was also no emission standards or anything like that.
Okay, for me, I'm trying to think when I gained consciousness. I would say 2009, 2010. I think I actually know what was going on. I feel like around there, there was some talk about climate change, like very briefly. But it was always in the news. Never understood it, and it wasn't. I think until was 2011 a really bad tsunami in Japan.
That
I think
sounds
there was something like that. Maybe it was Haiti or something. I can't remember. But around that time, yeah, there was a lot of.
And then yeah. So it was a tsunami, and then like the next year, the next biggest thing was like, besides like the war, was like in the Middle East, was just like another earthquake. And that's when people started saying like, "Oh, this is gonna become more frequent. Like, we gotta be worried." Like on the news when they would talk about what happened, like, "Oh yeah," and like some climate scientists like expect more tsunamis because the Earth's like like warming up and stuff. And when I was a kid, it was always like reduce, reuse, recycle. Like, I guess I went to Des Moines schools, so that kind of can change my perspective. But there's a lot of like Green Thumb, Earth Day was really big at school every year. So yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was like there might have been like a general sense of, protect the environment, but I definitely like became very aware of it from actually like early 2000, like probably like 2001. Actually, it was probably the 2000 election because Al Gore, was super into global warming was like the term that kind of like I was yoked on, I guess, and I think the right was maybe making fun of like this whole concept of
man, bear, pig.
yeah, like this, just the whole like global warming type
Right.
of thing, and so that's probably like when I first kind of woke up to that, and my again my parents were super conservative, so or at least my mom was, and so I think like she kind of like made fun of it a bit too for it, so that was another like I feel like, and again, I don't remember, but like I feel like I was probably like kind of like a skeptic, for a little while, and then we were also religious too, and it was like, our flavor of religion, Mormonism, kind of wanted the end times to come, so it was like, oh, let's just have the whole world, come on fire because that's the coming of Jesus or whatever.
Bring it
so
on.
It was, yeah, right. It was very like complicated feelings, but. Yeah, that was basically my introduction. And there was a ton of memes on the internet with Al Gore saying like, the world's gonna blow up or whatever. I can't even remember what they were, but yeah. So like, I guess I want to hit you guys next up with this. Is like, was there any point like where this general sense of climate change like felt that it was real and not just someone else's problem, I guess, to be reductive?
I can go first on that. Oh, go ahead. If you want to go, Chris, you can.
No, go ahead.
I always felt like it was real because, like, that's my whole life. People have always been talking about that. Like, I remember, like, COVID when all the factories stopped producing in China. They're like, "Oh yeah, the Earth is going back to normal. This is like a good thing." It was very obvious. It's the most recent one, but for me, it was kind of. It must have been watching this from that Vox YouTube channel as a kid, and they must have had something about climate change where they like broke it down to like layman's terms for me to like understand. It's like, oh shit. And the whole idea of like if the Earth reaches like this much temperature increase, like we're screwed. It's like you tip the iceberg over,
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
Well, as far as the actual global warming, climate change, it wasn't really until the 80s when they started talking about the hole in the ozone layer.
And I remember that. Yeah.
Once I saw that, I believe the scientists and what they were saying, and that's when they started, doing away with a lot of the aerosols and stuff like that. And so I believed it. Yeah, I believed it right away. But it's interesting. Before that, like in the 70s, there were kind of like two schools of thought. From what I remember, it's like people knew something. People were saying something bad is going to happen, but you had people on one side that are like, "We're headed for a new ice age," and then you had the other, and no,
Really?
it's getting warmer, because I don't remember anybody talking about the ozone layer at that point. They were just looking at like trends and like what's happening with pollution and stuff. but people didn't have a complete picture, and they saw, well, things were warmer if you look at like the 20s, 30s, 40s, and now if you look into the 70s, it's getting cooler. So they thought we were headed towards a new ice age. So I mean, we thought that that was a possibility then, but some of us did. But yeah, no, I'd say 80s when they started showing the evidence of the ozone layers, when I really for sure knew that.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. And I want to come back to this whole like hope thing. I'm going to ask you guys kind of at the end. But so the ozone thing to me is so interesting. So like when I was in the 90s, I think like that's like when they actually implemented, and by they I mean the entire world was like, hey, we don't want to like blow up the planet. We like our planet. Everybody like got rid of aerosols.
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit of hopium, like the ozone thing closed. Like it worked. Like we saved the planet, like
right.
actually did it. And so like it is actually possible to do that. So that was pretty wild. Like that everyone came together. The entire like planet came together. It was like, all right, like we're all gonna die if we don't do this.
Right.
So
of course,
we
the
did
skeptics are going to say there was never a problem,
right? And so like, and that's like we'll kind of come back to the doom side of it. Is like I feel like we're spiraling that way again, but instead this time there's a lot more like misinformation and skepticism and stuff that has permeated, to higher places. But anyway, so I guess, since you're probably the only generation that maybe could answer this, Chris, like, do you think that your generation did enough to, I guess, like, for where the planet's at now? Like, do you feel like your generation on a whole did enough, or did they kind of waffle too?
I don't know if I ever feel like we did enough, but I do feel like, because of what I said before, we were just inundated. I mean, I don't think it didn't feel like there were as many skeptics then, or at least maybe they weren't as vocal or something, or things weren't as polarized as they are maybe now. And so I felt like everybody, conservative, liberal, it's like everybody wanted to do the right thing and for the environment back then is what I feel like. But to answer your question, I feel proud about that we turned a lot of things around, because like I said, the whole thing about the cities and the pollution and everything, sure. A lot of, emission standards got put in place. A lot of stuff happened. Like you were saying about the ozone hole, closing later in the 90s or whenever it was. There was a lot of things like that happened in the 70s that I can look back and say, wow, we actually accomplished some things. Was it enough? We always could have done more, I'm sure.
Sure. So I want to switch over to Elmine. I'm getting the sense that you kind of like grew up, with this, I'll call it like eco-conscious, way, I guess. And so like, do you still do things today that are like, like in your day to day, we were like, hey, like, I should recycle this, like you kind of like inconvenience yourself slightly to be more green, I guess. Do you still have that?
Oh yeah. I'll save the good one for last, but like this year I started gardening. So like the year before I got my solar ready, I composted like all my food scraps. I do try to go and shop.
Pretty good. Wow.
Shop like eco-friendly stuff usually, like on Amazon. I always select like or arrive later in fewer boxes or whatever. I'm trying to think. Also, a lot of this stuff has just kind of been like, people have worked so hard to make it kind of the easier thing to do most of the time. But yeah, I do go to my way to recycle stuff, like not throwing trash. I feel like I haven't seen that in Iowa, like growing up. Since I've been older, like no one's been throwing trash on the side of the road. Like there's like bad parts of town, yeah, but that's about it. And oh yeah, the last one. For work, so as you guys may know, we're all software engineers, and we use up a lot of damn electricity, which takes a lot of energy, especially to cool down all the servers and everything. And especially in like recent years, I think we'll hopefully, and I don't know how I'll be able to help this, but change the way we program, like focus less on just like, oh, throw more compute at it. Like how about like optimize and use the hardware we have now rather than just recycling or trying to recycle any parts of like an old computer and try to make it like just 2% better, which, you know, you have to do all the carbon emissions on that. So yeah.
Do you still kind of like, you know, you have like this individual action and everything. Like, do you think like it actually helps, or like do you kind of, I guess where I'm going with this is like, do you think that really like the onus, you know, is on big corporations? Like, for example, like,
Oh yeah.
you know, McDonald's, right? Like produces a ton of hamburgers and that requires a ton of cows, right? And those cows basically, you know, fart methane into the into the atmosphere, right? Like in a massive scale. You know, do you feel like it's really on us, or is it really on like, you know, megacorps to get their shit in order?
Oh, 100%. Especially, I think the military industrial complex is like the worst polluter by far. Like, if we
Explain
could,
that.
the way the military operates and how much stuff we produce, all the manufacturing goes in for military stuff. Like those giant aircraft carriers we have, because we're the only country with like 10 of them. No other country has more than one aircraft carrier. I think those are like horrendously bad for the environment, I believe. Also, just like what's going on, all the movement, we're moving like tons and tons of planes and equipment over the Middle East right now. Yeah, and that's something I've learned, that where like the industrial military complex, like from going and getting the materials to using the damn bomb, is like the worst polluter.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, but what about you, Chris? Like, do you first, like, what eco-conscious choices do you make day to day, and then like, you know, how do you feel about those versus, again, your individual action versus a collective action like through a corporation?
Well, I'll just come clean and now and say that I've slacked off, and I'm not as good as I once was, because,
Get him!
you know, yeah,
everyone get him!
I know. Well, yeah. Well, you know, I need to read more about this, but, you know, a couple of people told me that I was wasting my time recycling because it makes no difference, and we expend more resources recycling than what you actually gain from it. Elmine, this is where you step in and tell me I'm wrong. And then after that, I don't even know there's a lot of truth behind that, but I'm just like, I still recycle. But a lot of the things I used to do, probably like you were saying, that making those choices, like fewer deliveries, fewer, you know, using recyclable, bags at the grocery store and stuff like that. I've gotten lax about all that, to be honest. But yeah, I do agree with Elmine. I think, corporations, you know, they're the biggest polluters, right? So I do believe that a lot of that falls on them, but I should be better.
So I'm going to ask you guys both. So, like, I know both of you guys like eat meat and stuff. Like, would you give up meat? I guess I know Elmine loves a good smash burger. So, like, could you guys give up meat, or like, could you substitute meat with like lab meat or plant meat or something?
I've tried. There's a whole part of my family that is very, as I mentioned earlier, very eco-conscious, and they're vegans. And I've tried it, and I was okay for a while, but I like my smash burger too. But, you know, I'm not saying no, but it would be difficult for me. But
I recently, so last week, I just started eating mushrooms for the first time. Like I've always tried them because I never liked mushrooms, but after trying those, I was like, oh yeah, I could totally go like stop eating meat now if I had to. Especially if it was like hey everyone, that we're not going to eat meat anymore. It's like, yeah, I'm totally down.
Interesting.
But
like,
I
hate mushrooms, so I do not relate.
Yeah, I like mushrooms too, so sorry.
Yeah, but man, I'm pretty dangerous behind a black stone. I'll say that. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, so mine would probably. So I think I could give up meat. Like, I actually don't mind like black bean burgers. I know like some people have issues with the concept of like lab meat or whatever, but to me, it's like if you can literally mimic, you know, it in a lab, and you know, it's not outrageously expensive. It'd probably be cheaper in a lab than all the whole process of feeding a cow and everything. So
I'm with you. I have no problem with that concept.
Yeah,
at all.
like I know some folks like can't get over the fact that it's grown in a vat or whatever, and it's like I don't care.
That's much better than thinking about how beef is made right now.
Right? Yeah, and like that's what gets me is like my wife owns a large dairy farm, and it's like just the industrialization of that. Like it's really hard to to go to those places. I think of like chicken farms too. It's really hard to like watch it be made. Like that's hard. It's hard. Like just the industrialization of it, and the cruel. It's not cruelty like for chickens to get butchered, and be eaten, but like just it's just hard to watch. So it's like, hey, if it's just grown in a lab, like no animal is hurt or in anything in any sense at all. It's just like the meat's just grown. So to me, it's like just kind of gets over all of those types of things. So I guess like if you had to pin all of our problems today, all of our environmental problems today, like if you could bundle it up into one generation, one problem, like who is it? Who did this to our planet? Who did it, Elmine?
Industrialization, I think.
No, just like all who is the issue? Like, why is our planet warming, and like why are we talking about this today? Like, who didn't stop it, or what didn't stop it?
Probably Reagan. You can trace everything back down to him. But oh man, what didn't stop it? That's so hard. Greed. I don't know.
It's kind of hard to place it on one person. I mean, you jokingly mentioned Reagan, but I do think people like him are partially responsible for not doing enough and rolling back certain protections. I think it's hard to point fingers in one specific place, but I do feel like maybe this is the obvious answer, but like post World War II, we had the 50s and we had, the baby boomers coming up. Everything was American consumerism took off, and industry took off, and everything just started to be about just feel like we had a lot of waste going on and stuff like that in the 50s and early 60s. Because like I said, American consumerism, everything just kind of took off, I feel like, there. So I think that's a lot of the root cause, I feel like, started back then. But as far as like somebody not doing enough, I feel like a lot of it just does fall on politicians, like Elmine said, people that don't think it's really a problem and think we should be able to do whatever we want to do. And also, I feel like to a certain extent, I feel like there's a religious aspect to this, and I wasn't sure I wanted to bring that up, but I know a lot of people who are fairly religious that believe that, God will take care of the environment. It's there for us to use. The animals are there for us to use. The world is there for us to use. And you don't worry about it because God will take care of it.
Can go into that. So like, I've brought up like the Mormonism thing, the end times thing. So like what angle or like what denomination, if you feel comfortable saying, like where is that coming from? Because like I have not heard that very specific one before.
Oh, really? And I've heard it from several people, and I don't know if I can narrow it down to a single. Well, I know for sure a big chunk of the exposure I've had that people believe that are the Baptist,
okay,
Southern Baptist specifically. They really, a lot of the ones I've talked to believe that very strongly, that climate change isn't real. God takes care of all that. He controls the climate.
So like when they say that, is it like, I guess like, is there any in-depth explanation for that? Like,
No.
hey, the planet's warming and it's like, but tomorrow it won't? Is that kind of like the hand wave thing
I don't think they believe, a lot of those people also don't believe scientists, don't believe the science. They're just like, that's all just made up, and just trust Trust in God. I mean, that's you don't need to worry about that. Don't believe what the scientists say. It's not true. Or they're confused, or they're trying to make money. They've got an angle, and just trust God.
So it kind of comes down to not like God will save us.
No,
it's more nothing's happening. Just
nothing's happening because God controls it. He's in control.
Okay.
But now, as far as like, if I've never heard anyone give me like a scripture, a specific scripture or anything like that, but I mean, you could probably take it back to all the things just kind of generally and say God's in control.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's and I know I mentioned about animals, but I think it's some of that's true there too, which it kind of plays into some of the environmental things. It's like, well, the animals are there for us to consume and use. God gave them to us to use, and just like the earth, it's there for us to use as we see fit. And yeah, it's an interesting take on things. I don't share those sentiments, but
yeah, and just like what I'll call like the absolutionism of it, like, it's so like binary to them. It's so like God will take care of it, so I don't have to care at all. Like, it's just so foreign to me,
Mm-hmm.
like just basically putting my, for lack of a better term, faith into like this thing I can't see or do or anything is just such a leap for me, it's like I can see all this data, and maybe that's like where these people don't. It's like, I can literally see that, we're having more and more natural disasters, and like, even I'm experiencing a lot of it, and it's like I just can't even put myself in their shoes and be like, yeah, I can, close my eyes and fall down backwards and expect to be caught. It's crazy.
Right. So your experience you mentioned earlier with the Mormon religion, you didn't kind of hear those same kind of things, or?
Yeah, kind of like a common thing with Mormons is, so it's like kind of written into their scripture that they're kind of, they call themselves the Latter-day Saints because they think that these are the latter days. Like, and by that means like this is the end times, or that we're nearing the end times, right?
Right.
So there's almost like this really sick hope that that Jesus, like that, famine will come, fire and brimstone will rain down, and that a lot of people will die, and that Jesus will then come and like, basically said like mission accomplished and we all go to heaven or something. I don't really know. There's not really a lot of like
mission
here's what's
accomplished.
Gonna happen. Yeah, like yeah, right.
You guys did it. Wow.
Yeah, like there's not like a lot of like, written about what happens when he does come. It's of course very, very light in the details of that. Even like before that, right? Like what the end times come. It's always, perfectly obtuse so that, it can fit just about anything. But yeah, they're very much, and I know quite a few religions are, almost embracing climate change, and the fact that like it is the end times, like this will, I can point at scripture and say like, Jesus is going to come after the planet literally heat deaths us, right? And so there's sort of like this, this suicidal yearning for it.
So the joke that I said earlier, "Bring it on," that's really what you're saying.
Right. Yes,
bring it on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, it's unjoking. Bring it on. Like, let's go. And some of that, in from their point of view, I think of folks that we've talked about this in other episodes, like that are super poor or something. It's like when you have nothing, when you don't really have a lot to live for, like that can seem like, that can be attractive, right? Like, hey, like I'm gonna die and go to heaven, which is purported to be a paradise, or something, right? So there's sort of that.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm going to suffer here, but I won't suffer in the next life, So
yeah,
which is like, never mind. No comments. No comments on religion. I'm neutral. And one of the people that piss me off the most about climate change are the ones who are like, I can tell they believe in it, but they're never gonna say it outright, and they don't want to. Maybe they think they don't believe in it, but deep down they do. It's like they're so scared of the idea of like we're just fucked. Like there's nothing possible to do. And it's like there's like, yeah, it's not real. It's not gonna happen. Like these are smart people. I've like how I know understand like stats and statistics, and they just like do not want to accept that fact.
What do you think that is?
It's scary. It's like, dude, like in like 10 years, 20 years, like oceans rising, crazier weather, like famines, like at a worldwide proportion. It'd be insane.
This is kind of random, but you guys remember when was it a senator or representative went to the House floor and threw a snowball and said, "There's your global warming," basically like, here's my refute to that whole thing. I found a snowball.
Yeah, Senator Snowball, that's what they called him.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we learned about that in government class. Our teacher was like, yeah, they called him Senator Snowball.
Yeah, I think it just kind of goes into, like, I think about, I don't know, just people's lack of, like, critical thinking, in the fact that, and I know you guys know this, but, like, today it's weather, but a trend is not weather. It's like today you might have a snowball, but tomorrow, like, if it's 102 degrees, like, that's, and over time, those are trends, right? That's climate, right? It turns into the climate, right? And there's just sort of that obtuseness that's really hard, like, to hear what you're saying. I mean, like, it's really hard for people, especially people that are towing that line, to, like, reject that. And you're like, I know you're smarter than that. Stop it.
Yeah, like, I have to wonder if people like him, though, are they just making a spectacle just to appeal to a certain group? Does he really believe that? Or does he... I don't know. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know.
And, like, no one with, like, money and power is, like, helping right now, because everyone's, like, investing so much in AI, and these, like, data centers are being built. They're, like, the size of, like, small towns. It's insane. With how much energy
that's another thing. We were talking about big corp. That's another thing that does bother me about AI. I use it, so that, again, I'm not, like, helping here, call myself out, but it does bother me, like, that these things are consuming a absolute ton of electricity and power and water. I know they're, like, quote unquote closed loop systems or whatever, and the water's, like, being funneled food, but at the end of the day, it is still an incredible amount of energy. And that's just one problem with the AI. We're not even going to get into the whole, literally stole the entire internet worth of content to shove into these models and train them. But yeah, the climate aspect of that does really, really bug.
Perfectly said.
So I guess all of this wrapped up in a big bow. Like, what gives you the most anxiety about climate change? Like, what are you scared of most? Like, I'm thinking of movies like Day After Tomorrow, right? Like, where the huge fucking wave comes in and destroys New York City or something. Like, what is that for you? Like, what are you scared of most?
Famine, I think. Like, world food supply being damaged. I don't think we'll be affected here in, like, the Midwest, like, as much as, like, but, like, seeing what's going right now in the Middle East and people just, like, being starved to death, it's like that at a global scale would be horrific.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I agree. That, and I think just the water level rising. I think we have so much population on the coast, and I can see, I mean, even though I'm in the middle and I'm not really affected by that directly, I worry about that too. But I think you're right. I mean, I think global famine is right up there. That's probably my number one too.
Yeah, I'm with you on I think I'm scared most of, kind of like what you said, Chris. Like, I'm scared of a little bit of, like, the water rising, and mostly, like, what that means from, I think of really, like, and again, I'm talking with I'm an American head. Like, I think of, like, the countries, like, in South America and stuff. Like, as those countries get more and more destabilized from these weather events and stuff, like, there's going to be more immigration, and like I'm okay with immigration and everything, but like it's gonna make it more desperate, not just in South America, but everywhere. Kind of like Elmine, you're saying, just these migration away from these less fortunate areas. Like a lot of folks are like in deserts and shit, like over in the Middle East, or even like I'll say like flourishing countries like Egypt. Like they still have a lot of water bordering them. There's just they're just sort of like a little more vulnerable than even we're very lucky in the Midwest. But yeah, I just think of like just the destabilization factor of these like really scares me of what that's going to do in the next couple decades.
Point. Yeah.
I'm still remaining hopeful. Like I think it says in like a couple other episodes, it's like I'll never look at like these events in like a negative light. Otherwise, it's just like, what's the point, I think we'll experience some like massive changes to the way the world is, and that will finally just like undeniable. I feel like once America gets something big to happen, where people are like actually like really affected, that probably like shake us. But that's like the latest scenario. I think.
What do you think that would be? What do you think that would be?
Oh, like something really. Oh, it'd be a giant earthquake. Either like the one in Missouri or the one in like California.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking of California. Yeah, I was doing that. Yep.
The one in Missouri is like kind of more scary because it's like that's us, So
yeah. So do you know much about the one in Missouri? Because I don't. Like, can you describe like what would happen or?
Yeah, it is southeast Missouri. In 1895 was a 6.8 magnitude earthquake. Like a big one like that would probably hurt all those like big cities down there and like a little bit of southern Iowa. But we would like feel that, like really feel it for the first time. That'd be insane. And I feel like that might help some people, finally look over. But I think, how the pendulum swings, like we're swinging in the wrong direction for everything right now. And people felt like we swung way too far left, which I don't think we even did. I think we'll start seeing it hopefully come back to our side, and we can actually get some stuff done.
That's frustrating, isn't it? Because Christy and I talk about that a lot, where the pendulum swings back and forth. It's like, can't we just be in the middle for a while? But it's like we got to be one extreme to the next. Yeah.
So let's say like let's go dark here. Like, what do you think? I guess I'll ask you directly. I mean, like, are you comfortable? I don't know if, sorry, maybe this is super personal. Are you comfortable like having kids? I guess, like, do you think like it's going to get dramatically worse? And like, what does that look like for you? Like in your decision making, right?
I don't think it will affect my decision to have kids, because I really want to be dad. Unless like like a famine, I'm not gonna have a kid in a famine.
Yeah.
But it'll definitely like I'll think pretty hard, before it's like, can I raise this child to the age of like, so old enough to like do the right thing? But I don't know. It's weird. It crossed my mind more than it should, sadly.
Right. Yeah. That's a really good comment, because I was thinking that exact thing. Like, I've got Piper and Josie, who are 5.5 and coming up on 4, and it's like I really have spent a non-zero amount of time thinking like, hey, like, are they going to be involved like in the water wars, or something? Like, what is that, right? Like, Chris, do you ever think about that? Like,
gosh, now I am.
Like, if everything gets super hot as it has been, this year has been wild too. I don't know if you guys have like been paying, like, it's crazy in the Midwest, but every year we've been just burning up. Like, every year has been so hot. Like, I do think about just straight up not enough water, in general.
Yeah, because like you said, this summer it's like the first part of June. Normally, the first part of June it's like beautiful, and it's like when you start enjoying your summer break or whatever. But now it's like it's been hot more than usual. Yeah,
It's God, with like zero snow winters and everything. I'm planning to move up to like Minnesota area, because it's also like on like those climate change maps. It's like one of the areas to be like least affected or like not be too bad. So yeah, that's actually something we could talk about, like where you live in the future. Is like, are you guys gonna like think about where you move to? Because I don't think I'll ever live on a coastline.
No, absolutely not. Oh, I was considering to. I think we're in like a really good spot here in Iowa, like as far as just on a climate map. But yes, I would move up to Minnesota too if I had to as well.
it's crazy how many people I talk to that want to move to Minnesota. I think Minnesota is going to be like the next Colorado or something. There's just going to be this huge influx of everybody coming from everywhere else. But yeah, so many people I work with, and just friends outside of work that just are like, yeah, we're going to Minnesota.
Well,
Either because of the climate or because of the political climate. So
yeah, you guys said it, like I think on this podcast actually, or in person. It's like Minnesota now is what Iowa was when it was like super progressive and like doing stuff,
yeah.
the way that we want the world to go. And it's like,
yeah,
what's that? I think it's a Reagan T-shirt. It's like, a gay couple with their adopted babies and their guns and like something like that. It's like that's what the kind of people that like, look for in Minnesota. More like center area people.
But yeah, I mean, I even think of like little things, like focusing on Iowa here. I think of like little things of just the other day. What was it, last week? Or maybe it was earlier this week, right? Like Ankeny sent out a letter saying like, hey, no more watering like anything at all, right? And that's because, like, I mean, like you're saying, like the political climate here has shifted so much into like, I don't think it's any one farmer's fault, but like there's so much nitrates in the water now that like the water's straight up undrinkable here.
Yeah.
Like it is so terrible here.
Poop water.
Yeah, and it's like you can't even use it's like it's funny how we've kind of turned into California, like in it's different side of the same coin, right? Like over in California, it's like they literally have shortages. It's like we have like kind of an abundance of water, but it's all fucking polluted. You can't even use it, like and so it, like the entire metro, like over nearly 1 million people, like have this weird ass like water thing going on because there's so much nitrates in the water.
Did you, this is a little off topic, sorry, but did you, this has probably been 5-10 years ago, but I was being sued because there was so much runoff of fertilizers and stuff that's ending up in the Mississippi. It's going downstream and ruining the water down there for the other states, and those states are suing the state of Iowa because of all of our runoff.
I believe it.
I don't know whatever happened to all that, but
well, I know there was what was it, Bill Stowe or something here in Des Moines Waterworks was suing, like, I don't know, rural Iowa or something, like trying to be like, hey, you guys need to like, do more to filter out the nitrates, because like Des Moines Waterworks is, filtering all of that out, and it's like they can't keep up with it. They straight up just cannot keep up with it. And so I know he tried to, and again, talking about that political climate, it's all intermixed, and Iowa, even in 2016, was still very red, and like dude lost, and lost, and so that would have today absolutely cleaned up our water. Like we would not be having this problem if that had gone a different way.
Yeah. Do you guys? This is also a little bit off topic. Do you guys know where like the current governors and current people that are running for election, like where they stand? Because it's like no politicians here really want to go against big ag and like hold them accountable, because that's who funds their campaigns. Which is like, I think people are waking up to it more. it's like on the good sides of like this huge social media. It's like people are like really aware to like, oh shit, it's just like farm shit when you get this out of the water. Because I will never swim in an Iowa lake for a long time until it's been tested of all the stuff that's in them.
Yeah, it's honestly scary to swim in any pond, and like I remember doing that when I was young. You know, you just find a random pond, you go swim in it. Now it's like I would never let my kids swim in any random pond anymore. No, absolutely not. Throw a third eye or something. So like, let's kind of wrap this up. Like, so what kind of policy or regulation like comes to mind for you in a global sense? Let's kind of step out of Iowa. Like, what do you think is like the number one thing like that we could do as a world to like fix stuff or start going in the right direction? Like, what is the biggest step we could do?
I still think renewable energy is a huge thing. I can't believe we're still having this fossil fuel discussion. I don't, there's so many other alternatives. That's a big one for me.
For me, two things. One, we need to adopt, like the EU has some pretty good policies. I like their policies on like data privacy and stuff. But for energy and what they're doing, it's like look at certain countries as examples. Like Germany, they have like 7 types of recycling. They take it very seriously over there. It's like that should just be like a norm worldwide. And secondly, it's like I don't know how much research you guys do with like nuclear reactors and like the new age of these like nuclear energy. It's like smaller reactors where it's like if shit hit the fan, it would only affect like a very small amount. It would not like a huge nationwide fallout.
Really?
And they're like more efficient. They use less nuclear material, and I don't know why it's not being used more. I know it's in actually Columbus, Missouri, where the Mizzou campus is. They have like I think the largest nuclear reactor in the United States.
I did not know that.
Columbia? Is that what you
said?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about those smaller reactors. Like, I'm going to read up on that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought we might have different answers on this, but I'm the same thing. I think the number one like easiest thing, like again, I think individual actions like really hard to collectively like, invoke change, but I think literally energy to me is the easiest thing to do because like you said, Chris, like it's been around forever, just solar, wind, hydro, and even nuclear. Nuclear is a very clean energy. Obviously there's that risk, but like you're saying, it's been de-risked a lot and it is incredibly effective and obviously long lasting. Like just look at Chernobyl, it's like that shit's still 40 years later like throwing out reactive fallout, right, a little bit. So like there's just that just seems like the easiest, biggest thing. I know obviously being super reductive, we all are on how easy it is. You can just hand wave the entire energy grid, but it just, again, seems like a really easy top down, investment of let's just take that off the plate.
I totally agree.
But also bring back plastic straws. That was not the issue.
Then we can all have our plastic straws and no one can complain about it.
That has pushed people farther away from climate change and in the wrong direction because it's like, that is not the reason, bro.
Did you see that Daily Show with Jon Stewart episode where he was going through all the executive orders and that were, Trump was throwing out in his first part of his term? Well, we're still in the first part, but the first few weeks. And he was just going through them and just laughing. But then he said, and I'm bringing back plastic straws. And Jon Stewart's like, I'm with him on that one.
Yeah. A broken clock is right 2 times a day,
Right.
What else? I think we'll be good. We're humans. We'll adapt. We'll be better. There's just an art style called like utopia science fiction where it's all like, what I can see the world being a lot more like eco-friendly, like green thumb, hippie, but also like progressing science still, like not. There's a dream world out there, so don't be too sad if you listen to the whole episode and kind of scared.
So we're not going to end up like on Soylent Green where we're eating dead people. No.
No, Ben will stop it. He will never eat mushrooms. So we'll make
Right. Right. Speaking of eating weird things, there's like this scare about eating insects or something. Would you guys eat bugs?
Yeah, I've already eaten some bugs.
Really?
I don't know. I know it shouldn't bother me because of all the other things I eat, but I just can't get past that one. So tell us, Omi, what's your story on that?
Well, 2 times both. It's like we'll put like a worm in a shot, not like an dirt worms, like with small worms, or we'll put like a scorpion in a shot.
So it's just been alcohol involved.
Yeah.
All right, this makes a lot more sense now.
How much alcohol was required before you were ready for the alcohol with scorpions in it?
Oh man. Probably I think 4 beers. Give or take.
Yeah, I think I'd be totally okay with bugs and stuff too. I don't know. To me, it's like I feel like it'd be super cheap for one, and I think you could probably like, I think of all the processing that goes into like making a literal potato chip, and like I think they could grind up enough bugs and turn them into chips, and you wouldn't even know the difference, right? So,
yeah.
Like shit falls in those hoppers already, like rats and stuff. Like you're already eating a little rat and a little bit of bugs anyway. So.
There's probably a lot of bugs in there already. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if I didn't know about it and it's just processed like that, of course, processed food's bad, right? But no, if it's ultra, I wouldn't care. But like, if you just gave me, like you're saying, just gave me a scorpion, whether it was an alcohol or not, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah.
I remember we went to the science station. This was in the late 90s, like the science station in Cedar Rapids, and they had these suckers, and they literally had like put, like a bee or a grasshopper or something like in the middle, and you would eat the grasshopper as part of the sucker. And like we as kids, we just thought that was the most like hilarious, funny thing ever. And it was like real, but it was it was encased in this thing. I think it was the whole thing was like teaching you about amber, like the because in the late 90s, there was all that Jurassic Park and everything. It was kind of
right.
It was all
things
from
preserved
that.
in amber.
Yes, right. So there's a huge craze. So bugs have a lot of protein in them. They're very, very good.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Nutrient wise.
Maybe tomorrow when it's like 100 degrees, because that's totally normal, I'll go find some bugs to eat.